Hello, and welcome back for some more Mechyard survival. In the last episode, we built this missile system that we can see behind me that retracts and deploys and has a strange way of targeting rather than using a custom turret controller. We set it up with some AI blocks and a bunch of gyroscopes just to give it a little bit more range than a standard turret controller. So between episodes I have set up the defense towers on here so the station is a little bit more defended, and I've also got around to building the second missile silo, so we now have two of them over here, and this one works just the same. The doors open, and when the doors open enough, it deploys the piston, and then when the piston deploys enough, we'll activate the missile launcher and kick it back into its default position. Just like so. And then we can deactivate the entire thing, and it'll all pack itself away again. And so the next thing that I want to do now is I want to set up the train so that we can have it automatically deploy itself from the main base, come up here and deposit a load of components so that we can actually produce the missiles, because the missiles take quite a lot of stuff to produce. So we need a way of regularly getting stuff up this end of the track. So we will head back to the base and we will have a look at the inside of the train. But first I would like to say a quick thank you to my latest YouTube members, Charlie Milton, So Jolly, Kind Studio and Dank Engine Dave. Thank you guys, your support is very much appreciated. So, we're back at the base, and as you can see, I have upgraded the train station a little bit. It's a little bit longer, and it also has a set of turrets as well. And if we head inside the station, we can see some of the upgrades that I've made to the train itself. So, as you can see, the train is now 5 carriages long, and I've numbered them all. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So, in car number 5, which is the very rear end of the train, everything's pretty much the same as it was. Not really done much in here. But if we step into car number 4, I have built a secondary storage container. However, this one's slightly different. This one is full of rows and rows of small containers. And then we have car 3, which is the old subway car design from last time. Not much has really changed in here, except for a little bit of minor greebling. There's a few weapons racks and medical kits dotted about, and a little bit more detail. And then in car 2 is more of an auxiliary car. This one has got a survival kit, just in case anything should happen to us and we need a place to respawn that's away from the base. And it's also got a bit of hydrogen and an O2H2 gen, so we can get basic essentials when we need to. And it also has some tertiary storage, so in here we have a combination of the medium containers and the small containers. And in car number 1, I've done a little bit of remodeling in here. I've taken out the large reactor and replaced it with a cluster of small ones, so I think it looks a bit cooler. And it was generating ridiculous amounts of power that it didn't really need. So I thought I would replace that. And then in the cockpit we have upgraded a few things. We now have rows and rows and rows of event controllers. And these controllers are set up to manage the cargo system for us, because I spent about 2 days doing the maths, and trying to work out exactly how many components I needed versus how much storage I'd need versus what kind of storage I can create using the space I've got, a sorter system, and the available containers. So we now have a semi-automated docking system. There's still a few other things that I need to do, but so far what we can do is we can trigger the cargo in controls, and that will start drawing in all the components into our storage containers, and one by one all these signs will start lighting up to notify us that the storage containers are full. And eventually, when they are all lit up, there is a sign here that will activate and tell us that all the cargo containers are full. And then when that sign activates, it will trigger the beginnings of an auto-launching sequence, and the train should automatically take off and make its way to the missile silo. So if we give these containers a moment to all fill up, we should see the train automatically leave by itself. And there we go. The cargo full sign has triggered, which means the auto deploy system has activated. And now the train is driving itself to the other end of the station. And then as we enter the station, we should trigger this sensor here, which will engage the auto braking system, which is a pair of timers on a loop, turning the handbrake on and off. And then eventually it should get close enough to lock down. And there we go. We are now locked down and ready to disembark, or ready to unload our cargo. And it will also switch to cargo out, so now all of this stuff is being emptied out into the missile silo. And the next thing we need to do is set up a similar control system back at the Mechyard, so that we can get this thing to automatically return once it's empty again. There we go, the cargo system is now empty. So we just need to automate a way of getting back to the base when that sign turns back on. Okay, so what I have done is I have set up another set of controls that work exactly the same way, just in reverse. So what we've got to trigger the train coming up here in the first place is a timer that is triggered when all the cargo containers are full. And what that does is attempt to trigger the auto launch timer, which is the next one in the sequence, and it will start itself on a loop every few seconds. And if there is nothing preventing this timer from being on, for instance, say the Mantis walking past and raising that bridge, what it will then do is trigger this timer, which stops the previous timer and turns it off, unlocks the train from the docking station, and then triggers the auto drive timer. So for the reverse timers, I have just done the exact same thing. So that will stop everything and unlock and engage the reverse driving controls. And I have now tied that in to this controller here and this sign here. And there we go. Now the cargo container is empty. It is returning us back to the base. Now we just need to set up the same sensor controls at the other station that we have done at this one. Okay, so before we get any closer to the station, I have quickly popped over here and I have set up a brake relay and I have set up a brake sensor. And what this brake sensor does is it detects small grids and subgrids so that it can trigger when it detects our train and it can stay activated when we lock down. And then that will send a signal to the brake relay on the train, which will engage the handbrake sequence and hopefully help him lock down to the station. So if we jump back into our control seat and then re-engage the reverse driving system, hopefully when we get close enough to that sensor it will engage the handbrake again. And now that we're back at base and locked down, it's automatically refilling again. And when all of those containers are full once again, it should return back to the station at the other end. And there we go. The cargo is full, we have switched to cargo out, and we have auto-deployed back to the missile station. Fantastic. So it seems like our auto-docking system might be working now. So we'll ride this to the other end, and then we'll have a look at a few more defensive systems for the missile silo. Right, well, here comes the train once again, and when it gets underneath that sensor in the ceiling, it should engage the auto-braking cycle, and then when it gets close enough, it should automatically lock down. There we go. It's braking for us. And a little bit of a lag, and then we lock down. Fantastic. So now that we are back on cargo out mode, we are emptying our cargo containers once again. And one other little change that I had to make to the docking system at the train stations is I've unfortunately had to swap the nice new cool looking inset connectors for the old style small connectors. Thanks to Engineered Coffee, I was made aware that the new ones are slightly bugged and they have issues joining up to other copies of themselves. Don't know why, but for some reason they just have a hissy fit. And I was having a few issues getting this docking system worked, and as soon as I've swapped it to the older style ones, presto, the problem is gone again. So that's annoying, but at least that works again now. And it would seem like all of our cargo containers are now very, very full of all the components they need to mass produce missiles. Fantastic. So, if the train hasn't emptied yet, it should stay at this platform until its cargo containers empty. And then, when they empty, it should recall back. So, in theory, this train will happily sit here at this station until it needs to come back and get some more materials. Okay, well, now that I think I've got that train cargo transport system kind of sorted out, I just want to quickly pop back to the base for a few things. Okay, so we are back at the base, and as you can see, I've made a few other upgrades. I've now put an entrance sign at the front of the Mechyard, and I've also taken down quite a few more of the wind turbines, just to help out with the frame rate and overall sim speed, because this little yard is getting quite busy now. And there's a few other things I want to do here before we go any further with our new little outpost. Now, a few people have mentioned in the comment sections of this series that I should probably build myself a welder ship, and I think it's probably about time to do that. I just get so lost in building small grid things that I never really think about welder ships too much. But seeing as we're doing lots of buildings and outposts and large grid stuff, it'd probably be a good idea. So, let's have a look at some stupid small grid welder designs. So, I reckon if we start with one of these new large inset connectors, and then maybe stick one of them on there. Of them on there. Another one on the back. And then I reckon I'm going to give it a bunch of arms, because I have to really, don't I? So we can have a bunch of advanced rotors. And a load of hinges on it. And then we will get these welded up, and we will go from there. Right, we've run out of iron again, because making all the components for all of that missile testing has drained the lot of it. Right, we're not getting much further with that until we go and mine some more. And as you can see, one of the other upgrades I've made is I've put a little roof on top of the Redfish's docking bay, just to keep it a bit more protected from any nasty things. And I've also added a couple of signs at my various mining holes, so I know which one is which, and also so I know where the hole is, because I've nearly fallen into some of these pits a few times now. As you can see, this one's getting quite large and quite treacherous. Right, we'll deploy him again, and then we'll get back to making a welding drone.
Automaton. I work hard when my owner turns me on. I can get you some uranium ore. Just let me know if you need more. Put me on a journey through space and time, and if you want to break me, that's just fine. You don't need to supervise me. Just keep in mind I need electricity.
Now, I reckon maybe I could use some of these new modular cargo containers. I might stick one of them, two of them, back to back. And then we could have a conveyor converter on there. And then maybe one of the new cabs on there. And then we could maybe have another converter on the back. And then maybe a pair of small reactors. Maybe we could squeeze a battery in under there. And then we can maybe use a little bit of this space in the back here for all of our programming and stuff. So let's weld these bits up, and then we can have a look at what we're going to do with these arms. And I think we might tuck a couple of gyroscopes back here. And I should probably take this opportunity to mention that I have added a few more mods to this game. I have added my own personal mech building mod pack, which includes some stronger gyros, stronger flatmo thrusters, stronger small grid rotors, and a few other bits and pieces for making mechs and automated things a little bit easier. So we shouldn't need as many gyroscopes. So I reckon 2 will be alright for now. And I think I might also experiment with giving this thing's AI controlled arms. So we're going to need a whole bunch of turret controllers, and we're going to need some way to turn this system on and off. So to begin with, we'll put at least one event controller and a pair of timers for the on and off functions, because there's going to be quite a few little bits and pieces going in there. And for the thrusters on this thing, I think I'll use my own modded flatmo thrusters that are slightly more powerful than the standard ones. So we can have one on the bottom, we can have one on the back, and then we could have a bunch of small ones across the front maybe. And then we can tuck in a bit of side thrust there, perhaps. And then maybe a little bit more at the back. Right, well, we'll get that welded up and see if this thing can fly. Okay, well now all of those bits are welded up, I think it's probably time to do a little bit of testing to see how well this thing flies. So if we head over to our little... Ooh, that was a good shot. If we head over to our platform controls, bring it down, and then we can unmerge it and give it a little bit of a test. That'll do for now. Yeah, that's not too bad. A little bit more vertical thrust, but so far that's pretty good. And with the big battery and the reactors, it's got plenty of flight time. Okay, well that initial test seemed to work pretty well. Flies pretty decently. I've made a few little adjustments. I've moved the battery to the back and I've swapped a few thrusters around. And it's a little bit more efficient now. And I've also added a few more turret controllers to the front because I want to give this thing some way of defending itself. I think some little arms coming out the front at the sides of the cockpit would look quite cool. So we'll build them at some stage. But for now, I want to figure out exactly what it is that I want to do with these arms. So for the moment, I've set up a thruster group so we can fly away. And I've also set up an event controller that looks at the altitude of the mech and flips those arms around into position. Because I'm trying to figure out what kind of things I want to do with it. Now I'm thinking of having two different sets of welding systems. One where the arms are out in front, kind of like they are now, so it can weld things directly in front of it. And I was also thinking of setting up another welding position where the arms are more like that, but pointing down a little bit more, so it can weld things directly underneath. So I'm just trying to figure out what bits I'm going to need to get it to do that. I'm thinking it's probably going to be more event controllers and more timer blocks and some more lights. So I'm going to have a little tinker around with a few ideas. I've added a whole bunch of timer blocks and event controllers to the back of this thing, and I've also added a few more gyroscopes to give it a little bit more mobility. And I have set up 3 distinct kinds of welding settings or arm settings. So we've got one that can position all the welders in front, one that can position them all directly below, and one that uses the AI control from the turret controllers. So I'll give you a little demonstration of that now. And I've also set up a event controller and some timers to act as the flight controls to turn the thrusters and the gyroscopes on and off. So we can engage our flight controls, and we can fly up and move about. The landing gear event controller will deploy or retract the arms depending on our altitude, and that also turns on some of the controls. And if we turn on our front welding controls, it will position all the welders and arms like so, and then we can hit our auto welding button, which turns on all of our welders and then starts rotating the ends of each arm. And then we can turn that all off to return it back to its default position. Then we've got our top welding system, which moves everything into that kind of position. And then we can once again activate our auto welding system. And that'll just move them all back and forth like so. And we can turn that off to reposition the arms again. And I've also set up some AI controls for the arms, so we can experiment with that too. And we can also change what kind of thing they're targeting. And they will also reset back to a default position too. And that is most of our basic controls, so I think the next thing to do is going to be give it a little bit of greeble, a little bit of a paint job, make it look pretty, and then we can probably go and test it out and see how well it will build the new platform over our outpost. So let's do some more designing and a little bit more welding. Well then, we now have a little bit of armour and a bit of a colour scheme, and I've also built the arms that I was talking about, so we can give him a little bit of another test run. So we've got our flight control on, also adjusted some more of the thrusters, added some heat vents, and a few lights and a few other bits. So we can fly up and down. We've got our front welding position and our auto welding setup. We've got our top welding position and some auto welding controls. And then we've got our AI arm control, and we've also got some AI controlled Gatling guns. And then they can all be turned off and reset to their default positions. And then we can land back on the floor again. And I think the next step now is to build some kind of docking bay, landing pad type thing, so that we can get components and things that we need into this welder, and then we can finally go and test it properly. So if we jump back into the cockpit and fly over here, I think I might use this space that I was originally going to use for the Mantis. Yeah, because we could dig that out, build another docking port here, then maybe build a little building for it, Maybe give it a roof that opens up. See how much space we've got to work with. And then yeah, that spot could be the home for the squid, which is what I'm going to call this thing now. So I've had a fairly squid-like idea in my head the entire time I've been making it. So we're going with that. Right then. Digging and building. More of it. Okay then, we are docked up. So if we go to our inventory, select just this ship, and select our cargo containers. And to test it out, we'll just grab a whole bunch of stuff that I think I'm gonna use. I'm probably gonna use at some stage. And we can probably set up some more stuff to get built as well, because we'll probably need it. And now that we're filled up with cargo for our welders, let's detach and go and check out what I've started on the missile outpost over here. So as you can see over here by the missile silo, I have made a start on the floor plan of what is going to be the docking station for another mech over here that'll be able to patrol around and dock and do all the things that the mechs over in the yard are doing. So first things first, I need to finish off this little catwalk that's going to lead into the building. And then once I've done that, we can test out the squid and see how well its different control settings do at welding stuff up. Okay then, the last of that little bit of catwalk has been built, so it's time to give this squid a little bit of a test. So, seeing as the platform is directly below us, let's test out top welding functions first. And it looks like we've run out of steel plate already. Right. That worked pretty well. We just didn't put enough resources in it. So, we'll head back to the Mechyard and go and grab some more bits. We'll finish that off. Right then, I've filled this up with a load more components, so we will undock and we will head back and carry on welding. Okay then, that seemed to work pretty well. We got to try out the Squid's top welding system, and it seems to do a pretty decent job. And we've also managed to weld up the foundations for our new docking bay. So I think next time we will come back and we will start work on the docking system and build ourselves another patrol mech to look after our missile silo. So thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.